To East of the Rockies, the Michigan Student Softball Podcast on WCBN Sports.
Well, Mr. Burns had done it, the power plant had won it, with Roger Clemens clucking all the while. Mike Scioscia's tragic illness made us smile, while Wade Boggs lay unconscious on the ballroom tile. We're talking softball, from Maine to San Diego, talking softball. Mattingly and Canseco, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw, Steve Sachs and his running with the law. We're talking Homer, Ozzie and the Straw.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of East of the Rockies, WCBN Sports' Michigan Softball Podcast. My name is Morris Fabry. I will be hosting today, and I have not hosted anything in a long time, so this may be a bumpy ride for you listeners out there. This should be an episode rife with technical difficulties, but we've also got some good stuff. We've got JP and Alex Drain on the other side of the glass. Kev will be calling in whenever he is available. So you guys got back from Florida. Your travel was seamless, I assume. Tell us about your trip.
Drain, go ahead. It was your first go around the wagon, per se.
Well, it was enjoyable. The team did a performance that we will talk about.
Yeah,
and,
they did a thing.
Yeah, but otherwise it was a lot of fun except for the last day. We, like the softball team themselves, were sort of trapped in Florida. We didn't have to stay overnight, though, but we had a nightmarish 12-plus hours at airports and then on buses and other things. But great weather. People were nice, and the folks at the softball stadium, very enjoyable. Good crowds.
Mm-hmm. Always appreciate USF. Big shout-outs to them. They run a good tournament down there. It was great bringing you along. Stayed at the old Quality Inn Conference Center with the pirate ship and the pool. Always a good time.
TV did not work.
TV didn't work. There was also a guy drinking a beer at the desk as he checked in. Like, he had a bag from, like, the CVS next door with, like, a 6 of Heineken in it. And then he pulled a koozie from the Bahamas out of his pocket and then just cracked open a beer and started talking to the girl as she checked him in. I thought that was pure Florida. It was awesome. We also watched somebody get married in a Waffle House. Like, no joke, this dude was getting married at Waffle House. Just an incredible trip. Just a lot of all-around great stuff. Your first Fowler Road Chili's experience, Drain, it transcendent.
Always transcendent.
Was it not?
It was great.
But yeah, game-wise, I think we had a lot of fun. The first day, obviously, a lot more fun than day 2. Last year, and we'll get to the Florida game, but last year it felt like that 10-inning, monster of a game was like just peak fantastic softball. Like, even though we lost, you and I came out of that game feeling like that was awesome. We had a great time. This year's game was kind of like a Band-Aid, like real quick, painless kind of loss. I don't know. It was only about an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. So a quick softball game, but that was probably the low point next to the travel getting back home on Sunday. Got to the airport at 5:15 a.m. in Tampa. Didn't wind up getting back here until like 8 o'clock at night, so was not a fan. Supposed to be home at like 11 that morning.
Well, you get what you pay for.
Well, Spirit Airlines, when we do it on the station budget, we ball on the budget. So they gave us each $100. We each got $100 in flight vouchers.
Does that go toward the budget?
Yes. I'm actually going to use it probably to fly to, or to pay for Lucas when he flies to Austin, even though he lives in Austin.
Well, that's nice.
Help defray his costs.
We should also point out we did have a good weekend for the station, too. Got tons
Big
of
listens.
Big listens for all the games we did.
Big tings.
Also had that guy that stood next to you for the Florida game who basically listened to your entire call the entire game, and then at the end was very complimentary, which was nice.
Those dudes, and Mo, we had a lot of people up on that Donaldson deck that were there last year, like very similar folks that you and I had met and talked to. These dudes were not up there last year, but they were warming up doing the stretches with Florida, like as they were doing them in the outfield. And these guys are like pretty overweight, like over 50, and they're out there doing full stretches. They're running up and down the deck. They're doing high knees. They're doing planks. It was impressive. I was impressed.
Man, I'm sad I missed it. So did you guys ever end up getting lunch with Griff?
We did not make lunch with Griff. That was a big downside, but what we did wind up doing, we had our post-game engagement after day one, and then day two between the games, Drain picked a restaurant for us, actually. We went to Jackson's Dockside in downtown Tampa. That was a good time. It was interesting enough.
Very nice.
Chicken and shrimp linguine for JP over here.
Yeah, how much did that stretch the station's budget?
I paid for lunch for us. I paid for a couple meals for us, just out of my own generosity and benevolence for Drain.
Okay, that's the story we're gonna go with.
Yeah, exactly.
So Michigan softball, 3-2 on the weekend.
Oh wait, there was softball?
There was softball.
Okay.
You guys broadcast 4 out of 5 games. They did beat Illinois State. What was it, 6-1?
I believe so. In the
after
end,
you guys left.
We were Twitter following from the airport lounge.
Yeah, Sarah Schaefer threw a couple of scoreless innings, which was, I think, unexpected. Another unexpected thing is freshmen making an impact. Natalia Rodriguez had a couple of starts at shortstop. Did you guys see that coming at all?
I mean, I think when we were going through the freshmen last week, she was a name that was brought up, not necessarily one that we harped on a lot. But man, when she came in to pinch hit, I was like, okay, great. This is a good situation to get a little plate experience. You know, get a hit in your first AB and then come back out again the next day and do the exact same thing. It was pretty great. It was cool to see. She was really fired up. The team was fired up for her. But no, I don't think I saw it coming into the weekend. But I don't think we saw a lot of things coming into the weekend, like Bobian being as dominant as she was, and
Thais Gonzalez making appearances.
Thais being pretty much a mainstay throughout the weekend in one form or another in that lineup, bouncing around spot-wise a little bit, but also played really well defensively in the outfield, had some really nice tracks, covered some good ground. But yeah, I think there were a few unexpected things. She was definitely one.
Yeah, I will ask, because defense is something that is probably the hardest thing to transfer over the airwaves as to like how the team looks on that end of things. So how did Michigan look defensively? Were there any standouts to you guys over the course of the weekend? How was Subject at third base?
Subject was much better than Swearingen at third.
Yeah.
Swearingen was very shaky. And
at the start, I think she settled in.
Yeah, I think that's true, but there were some errors.
There were, and I think one recorded error and maybe just a couple gaffes. You know, not necessarily going to go down in the E column, but just things that maybe cost an infield hit or something like that. But Subject was definitely fantastic at third defensively. Did well at the plate too over the weekend. Not too bad, batting .273 coming out of that, but. I think major props, and I think we gave these on the air quite significantly, especially on day two, to Katie Alexander defensively behind the plate. There were so many pitches from Blanco that were down in the dirt that she had to get in front of. She had to smother it, get it up in the pads, moving laterally left to right to get in front of those things. She saved a couple of runs, a couple of wild pitches, probably more than a couple of wild pitches, but I think that was really the best defensive performance of the weekend behind the plate.
Yeah, she's got soft hands. Kevin actually interviewed her last year and remarked on how soft her hands were when they shook hands after the interview.
Yes.
But she also threw out a runner stealing, too.
Yeah, she did. She had a good throw down to second. Not a great throw. I think that was also
a little bit off, but it was a good tag.
Yeah, it was a very, very good tag. There were a couple, touchy moments there in the field. Michigan did put up a couple errors on the weekend, but overall, I think, again, for a transitioning defense and for having the movement that they did, where especially in, the corner positions, a couple spots in the outfield, you weren't solidified at all over the weekend, so I think the rotations worked out well enough. There were a couple really nice snags, again, by Thais in the outfield. That was pretty impressive.
There was one from...
Natalie Peters did a great job, too.
Yeah, she had those two. She ran down in the gap.
Yep.
And then there was one more diving catch. Was it from Falk? Or it was in Wright. I don't remember who it was from exactly.
Trying to remember.
It was in the Georgia State game to preserve the no-hitter.
Right. But again, there were just some really, really nice plays.
So some good to take out of the weekend. Yeah. Certainly the biggest positive to take away was the performance of Megan Bobian. Before we start talking about her, Kev's going to call in about 5 minutes, but I figure we'll take the opportunity to play some audio from her. So Leah, the softball SID, the best SID I've ever worked with, was generous enough to ask some questions, and so none of us could make media day this week, but this is what we got for you from Megan Bobian.
Was a little rocky. But do you think you needed that to kind of get that out of your system? And obviously, you started the next game and got a no-hitter. So was that kind of your transition into your first game?
Yeah, I think it was really good to get in for the last inning of that game to kind of shake the jitters out a little bit and get over maybe just a little bit of nerves before that second game, because I felt a lot more confident going into the second game and the rest of the weekend.
So you said you felt, a little tight. Is that lingering nerves, do you think?
Not so much nerves, maybe just trying too hard to be really careful with my pitches. So this weekend I'm going to go into it and just be loose and relaxed.
So you had some success, obviously. It wasn't perfect. You didn't throw back-to-back-to-back perfect games, so it wasn't perfect. But do you think there was a lot there that you can build on, that you can improve on, that you came back to Ann Arbor, maybe a day late, but came back to Ann Arbor and worked on this week?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was overall a good start, and I'm definitely recognizing things that I need to improve upon, but I think overall there's good positives that I can take out of that and bring into next weekend as well.
So that was Megan Bobian. Questions from Leah, the softball SID. She was regularly hitting 74 on a gun that reportedly reads a few miles per hour faster than reality.
It was still impressive.
Yeah.
What specifically impressed? What do you guys see?
Well, I think, again, the base for her game is throwing good speed with a little bit of action on it, and then falling back on that changeup. When at Media Day last week, I asked her what her favorite pitch was, and she said she loves her changeup, and you could tell that is her put-away pitch in a lot of situations, going 3 heaters in a row and then coming back with the off-speed. Really, no matter how many times she did that over the course of the weekend, really shook up batters at the plate. So I think, again, you want to see a little bit more versatility eventually, but for a true freshman, that is a fantastic way to get started. It's a great base to build from.
But I really don't recall much, if any, hard contact on the weekend against her. She allowed the big single against Florida, but even that, it was a solid shot up the middle, but it wasn't a super hard hit ball. Most all of the hard hit balls we saw were off of Terra Blanco, especially in the USF game, balls to the gap, things like that, the home run. Whereas Bobian, if people were making contact against her, it was soft contact. They were fighting to stay alive for the most part. We saw a lot of fouls off because these hitters, when you have that contrast between the heat and then the off speed, you're either looking for the heat and you're just trying to catch up with it, or it's the off speed, and if you don't miss it, which so many hitters did, you're just barely making a piece.
Her stats on the weekend: she appeared in all 5 games, 3 starts, 2 complete games, 2-1, 19 innings pitched, 29 strikeouts, 116 batting average against. Those are ace-level stats from a true freshman here at the University of Michigan. Do you guys think that this is a pace that she can keep up for the rest of the season? And how long do you think it'll take? We're going to have some fun with small sample sizes here. This is our next segment.
That's always our start of the year quote.
The sample sizes don't get any smaller than they are right now. And right now our sample sizes indicate that Megan Bobian's one of the best pitchers in college softball. How long until you guys believe that that's a trend that, we can reliably get behind?
Well, first off, coming out of Friday, we weren't really sure. She had played Georgia State, and she'd pitched 1 inning against UAB. So at that point, it was like, okay, not really sure, what to take of this. But then after that Florida performance, where she was just so dominant, 1 strike from 6 shutout innings, even so, 2 runs given up to the number 2 team in the country. No one's complaining about that. She's not the reason they lost that game. After seeing that, there's no reason that she can't pitch at that high level against every other team on the schedule, given that they've already played the toughest team on their schedule. Can she be that consistently dominant, game in, game out? I don't think so. There will probably be, some rough games, but she's legit.
The way that I was raised, sometimes we went to Sam's Club and you made a dinner out of the little samples. So I think these sample sizes are going to become a dinner for Bobby, and she's going to get that rib dinner. I think really she's legit. I agree with Drain. We were questioning after the first day, a very, very impressive start against competition that, not necessarily has to be that good, but the numbers were that good, and then showed up against Florida, number 2 in the country, going to be a title contender again this year, and showed that she was absolutely comfortable there in that position against top quality competition, and that's probably going to be the toughest game Michigan plays in this year in terms of competition, I think. So I think she really let it all hang out there and really showed that she's got it.
All right, phone is ringing. Kev's calling in. I'm glad you turned that metaphor into a coherent point. Keep talking about Bobian while I answer the phone.
I feel like I do that all the time. I've always got a method to my madness. But no, I think, Drain, we were coming out of the day one, and I think a lot of people really expected her to start against Florida. I don't know if she expected to start against Florida going into the weekend. Oh.
Hello? Yep. Hey, how you doing? Good. Can I get your...
All right, so I think I know what's happening.
That's the wrong line.
We're totally leaving that into the show because that's what we do.
It is station fundraiser here at WCBN if you want to donate to.
So he called the 647-4122 number, and it still took him to the fundraiser. So I don't think we're going to be able to get a call in this show.
Okay, well, have Kev text in a little paragraph or something.
Yeah.
I will say one thing about Bobian is that she's got to be careful just defending herself on shots right back up the middle, because there were two in the Florida game, including the one that kind of threw off her rhythm in that crucial inning where she gave up the 2 runs, is that when you throw with that kind of heat, and a lot of it is just throwing it by hitters, she leaves some of it in the zone, and when they do catch up to the pitches, they hit them hard. And there were 2 just right back up the middle, and one that bounced right off of her. She's just got to be careful, got to be ready for when those comebackers come right back at you.
Yeah, that's always a peril in baseball or in softball. Being a pitcher is probably the most dangerous spot on the field, the only one where you can really sustain a grievous injury. Obviously, you hope it never happens, but it really comes down to luck more than anything. You can try to get in perfect fielding position all you want, but when it's screaming back at you 80 miles an hour, not much you can do. You just hope that never happens. So we're not going to put any more of that evil out there in the world. Next, small sample size, Faith Canfield, billed as Michigan's probable MVP at the beginning of the season, hit 2 home runs in 5 games this week, and that puts her on pace for about 20 this season. How long at that pace until you suspect that she's going to keep it up?
I mean, she could keep going. It's hard to tell. And that's a cop-out answer. But at this point, I don't think it stays at that rate. I don't know. This doesn't strike me as the same kind of big bombing team of a few years back. But if anybody's got the bats to do it, I mean, Canfield, Falk, and Blanco, they all hit the ball really hard this weekend. Whether it was, good getting down in the grass or not, they were really ripping it. Tara probably the most unlucky on the ends of those really hard shots that just found the gloves of defenders around the field. But I think Canfield, again, has not struck out yet after a full weekend. That's really promising too, keeping those numbers down. I don't know. I could see it going, but I don't think it will. And that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
I mean, she had, let's take a look on last season. I believe it was 9 homers a year ago. So to, get drastically better from that, maybe is a little too far. I think 20 is a bit of a stretch, but perhaps, let's say, it was 9 homers a year ago. So I think getting in the teens is not unreasonable, an improvement of, say, 4 or 5 home runs. But to double her home run total, it's a little bit more of a stretch, but I'm willing to wait it out, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, well, that's... Yeah, I hope she can keep it up as well. I figure if anybody is going to reach the 20 home run mark on this team, it's going to be Faith Canfield.
I mean, I guess you could say Blanco potentially. It all depends on the role she settles into, because she did hit a lot of balls hard. She hit a home run. And, I mean, let's just do a little what-if scenario for a moment. What if her big hit in the first inning of the Florida game goes over the wall? I mean, it was like 5-7 feet away from being over the wall. It hit the base of the wall. I mean, if that's a home run, Michigan takes an early lead, and sort of the momentum and the feeling of that game completely changes. So she had hard contact off of Kelly Barnhill. She had the home run in the USF game. She was really impressive, too.
I want to touch on this, too. We haven't gotten to it yet, but how smart is Tim Walton. I mean, you throw out Barnhill for the first 2 innings and Michigan starts to get a little bit of a feel. How nice is it to have a 3-deep rotation to just say, all right, my 2017 player of the year with a .8 ERA is getting hit a little bit hard in the first couple of innings with no damage done. Let's yank her. Let's throw in somebody else. And then Ocasio comes in and is just fantastic. It was a genius move in my mind.
Yeah, my reaction to that is that you can judge it after the fact as being smart because Michigan got shut out. But it's like, a brilliant coach deciding to sub out LeBron James and throw Kevin Durant into the game. Like, when you're dealing from a point of such a strength, the decisions that you make aren't going to have that much of an opportunity to make you look bad.
If Ocasio comes in there and gets bombed, then we're all like, there was some hard contact off of Barnhill, but she did throw 2 scoreless frames. What was he thinking?
That's a good, sarcastic news voice. I like that.
And instead, it all works out, so he's a genius. I mean, it's one of those where he trusted his number 2, and it paid off for him. But a gutsy move all the same.
Yeah.
All right, another small sample size. Michigan, I think we can safely say, played 2 legitimate teams this season. Legitimate in the sense that they're maybe NCAA tournament caliber. You got to give South Florida the benefit of home field when considering the quality of the teams. 2 runs in 14 innings versus those teams. How long of that occurring until we accept that this is a trend around the team?
Well, let's just kind of think about sort of this weekend as like a tale of 2 stories, first off. Because coming out of Friday, and I put this in the whole group chat, about, I thought Friday couldn't have gone any better. In terms of they put up runs, they run-ruled Georgia State. It was a great day all around.
We had Chili's.
Yeah, so, Friday went as well as planned. Saturday, I can't help but thinking,
Should have had Chili's for breakfast.
Well, we had to go watch someone get married at Waffle House.
Yeah. So. Whereas Saturday, it was one of those where you just kind of think that if they beat South Florida 3-2 instead of losing 2-3, how is our entire outlook different? And so we have to be careful not over, going all in on one particular game as making judgments for the whole. But that being said, it's not great because it resembles what hurt the team last year, and that's sort of the big problem. At the same time, though, they out-hit Florida, and they were right next to South Florida. I mean, it was a matter of all inopportune hitting, right? It was in the Florida game, they had, 6 hits, I think, and there was 1 for every inning, but none were ever 2 in 1 inning. And it wasn't just inopportune, it was bad RISP again this year. The first 5 games, runners in scoring position, I'm not sure, I would have to look at the papers to get the actual runners in scoring position stats, but it was not good. As a whole team again this weekend, there were multiple innings in the Florida game where you had runners on second with 2 down, another chance with a runner on second with 1 down. Can't scratch anything across with all of those situations, and that's exactly what doomed this team last year, was a lack of clutch hitting. We harped on it again and again on this show, so it's scary to see it kind of rearing its head again at the start here. But the other thing is that we also don't know what kind of a team South Florida is. I mean, we know Florida's good, but, there are times when, in other sports you think about, you play a team early on in the season and you're like, darn, we lost to a bad team. And then all of a sudden, as the season goes on, you realize that was actually a very good team and they way outperformed expectations. I mean, just because South Florida was coming off of a bit of a disappointing season, maybe they turned out to be really good. I mean, that freshman they brought in and started that game, can't remember the name exactly, let me pull it up. She was excellent in that game. Corrick.
Yeah.
She was really good.
No, she was very, very good.
Wasn't on the scouting report.
Yeah, she was not on this. She was. I mean, we mostly looked at returning talent.
I think she was a true freshman.
Yeah, she was. She's a freshman. Yeah, so she was really good. I mean, we don't know how good South Florida is going to be, so we just have to be careful. We have to look at this for what it is, but we have to get more data.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the unfortunate conclusion when dealing with small sample sizes is that they are inadequate, but that's not very fun. So what you're saying is that we shouldn't start throwing a parade for Haley Hoganrod hitting 1,000 the entire season and becoming the greatest softball player in history.
No, but
You're not saying that?
She does seem to be. No.
So we can buy the balloons. Double H.
Had a little time in left field, too, through a couple games as well.
It was, I think, the other surprise we didn't mention, though, was that it almost seems like she might be ahead of Richardson on the depth chart.
Yeah, that was something that Stuart Burlow, super fan of East of the Rockies, a close friend of the podcast, had brought up as well after day one, was a lack of C. Rich and her hot diggity dogs. Just didn't really see it throughout the weekend. So as maybe fell out of favor. Not a question that we were able to ask Hutch this week, but not one I would want to ask either. But yeah.
I also think that it would be nice if Michigan could request the folks that schedule the Wilson DeMarini tournament, if Michigan could play USF before Florida. Because that is a terrible back-to-back on the same day. It is. Yeah. I mean, even if you want to play, even if you play them after, put them on the next day. Mm-hmm. To have 2 days of easier teams and then throw your two hardest right back-to-back. I think if they beat Florida, they crush USF. It's just such a momentum type of game that and they throw everything they have into it.
Hey USF, can you do us a solid and let us play you first?
I mean, what's the problem with mixing it up and just putting maybe USF and Georgia State on one day, UAB and Florida on another? I mean, just kind of balance it out a little bit.
Well, we'll see if that's a tournament that the squad decides they want to keep going to every year. I don't know. Maybe there are a couple switch ups on the tournaments this year in the early season that weren't there last year.
But that's a good tournament for them.
It is.
I mean, because first off, it's in Florida. You're going to have a ton of fans there because of the amount of Michigan people that live in Florida.
And, players' houses as well, which came in super handy for the team because Drain and I were actually lucky enough to get out of Florida, whereas they were trapped there for an extra night. So
yeah, but also you get to measure yourself against a Florida team that's normally elite and then against a USF team that's normally, not elite, but pretty good. I mean, it gives you a good sampling of bad, decent, good, great. It's like one of those, taste platters.
Another little Sam's Club delight.
Yeah, just try them all out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the realities of non-conference early season schedules and sandwiching all the games into 3 days is that eventually you're going to run into some unfavorable sequences of teams. And I think Michigan is poised to benefit from that this coming weekend. Before we get there...
Can I give one more fun with numbers?
Sure.
I want to ask you, Morris, if you know the significance of this number. 74-22. 74-22.
I do not know the significance of this number.
It's the amount of money that Drain and I spent at Chili's on Fowler Road.
Oh, that's fantastic. And one meal?
Okay.
2, 3, 4?
Yeah, one meal. So, skillet queso, underwhelming. That I'll
Wait, you spent $74.22
after tip.
Okay,
and I had beer.
Okay. He also ordered a dessert.
Yeah, I did get dessert. I got a molten lava cake, which
there was no reason for that dessert.
Really good.
And then he made me have some, even though I was clearly full. But
it was big enough for two.
Yeah, that's why you shouldn't have ordered it.
This is where partners help each other out. But anyways, that was my last fun with them.
Sorry that I had to get in on the sniping about your rather short stature because the group me was absolutely full of it this weekend.
Drain was getting flamed as a child. I had to check his car seat at the baggage claim when he got to DTW. All those things.
He took it in stride. But more power to him, man.
Chili's has improved. Beer came in a cold mug this time.
The beer was not hot.
Yep.
JP, you sent me another audio clip, and this is of Natalia Rodriguez, and we're going to play this and
go for it.
Take a missive from Kev before previewing the weekend's action. But your email is in Swedish. The sent from my iPhone is in Swedish.
Oh, skickat from min iPhone? Yeah, sorry.
That's how you pronounce that? S-K-I-C-K-A-T is skickat?
Yeah.
Weird, man. Anyway, here's audio from Natalia Rodriguez real quick.
So how do you think your first college weekend went?
I think it went pretty well. There was a lot of good things up at bat and just executing when I was needed. Definitely see a lot of improvement and being able to make adjustments So definitely stuff that I can work with, and I just look forward to moving forward.
Do you think you gained some confidence? So, I mean, you had some success, this weekend, and it wasn't all perfect and rosy, but you had some success. So do you think you can, obviously build from there?
Yeah, most definitely, and especially with the coaching that we have here, I definitely think I can be able to grow and just continue moving forward.
So yeah, once again, thanks to Leah for getting that audio. What did you just play, JP?
That was what the bottom of the email says. I was just making sure that you knew that that's how it's pronounced.
Fortunately, I don't think that registered very well over that microphone.
Don't worry, you can listen back about 45 seconds and get me saying it.
But yeah, thanks to Leah for getting that audio. You can tell that Natalia is giving sort of, coach speaky answers to the questions, but we'll take it, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to her, give her a real official East of the Rockies interview later on.
It is so appreciated, though.
Yes.
I mean, I busted my finger. Lucas is in Columbus with the swim team. Drain has class, so it was a bad Wednesday.
I was saving lives,
Yeah, Morris at the hospital.
Yeah, so...
You never told us how you broke your finger.
The hookhoos. I closed my finger in a door.
You couldn't come up with a better story than that.
I'm sorry.
Because, we asked you, and then we just never got a response.
Oh, you asked?
I never
People
asked.
in the other chat asked.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think anybody really cared. So.
Yeah, I did not at all.
I think it was Lucas who asked.
Yeah.
So anyway, we wanted to get Kev on the phone, but both I am an incompetent engineer, and they want the phone lines available for the fundraising, so that didn't happen.
734-763-3500 if you want to donate to WCBN.
Yeah, even if you don't donate to sports, which we recommend, a lot of good programming, a lot of good people.
Keep us up and running.
Yeah.
Keep the chilies coming.
So anyway, Kev said he was very impressed with Bobian in Week 1. She rose to the challenge of facing a complete lineup like Florida. It was deja vu of 2017 with how the team put everything into the Florida game and then came up flat against USF. Watch out for ND and FSU this week. FSU is a top 10 team. ND getting votes in the polls. Michigan needs to go 3-1, but I don't know if the offense is powerful enough to do that. Although really solid defensively, looking at Alexander and Subject to bring more power into the lineup this weekend to deepen it so that the team isn't just relying on the big three of Canfield, Blanco, and Falk, who really did submit encouraging performances. This is me editorializing. This last weekend, those are the three hitters the team needs to rely on most, and they got the job done for the most part. But yeah, that was a combination of Kev and me going on a tangent.
I love how Kev's corner is so much tamer than Kev's
takes.
takes.
He's so fatalistic.
than Kev voice.
Well, that's like a very reasonable opinion of, what happened, and then what he was actually responding
Every
to.
time you hear or see Kev on East of the Rockies, he's got 5 layers of filter between the vitriol that he has simmering in his brain and what he puts out there.
He was going hard on Drain this weekend, but really Kev was the child after the losses. Group me was just him complaining about everything.
Yeah, he takes it hard because he's probably as big of a Michigan sports fan as there is.
Not that you would be able to tell from his fatalistic viewpoint, but just kidding, Kev. Love you.
Yeah, appreciate his input. Hopefully we'll be able to get him on the line next week. So anyway, Michigan going back down to Florida, this time Tallahassee. You wonder why these players even return to class. They're not here to play school. They're here to play softball. And this weekend they'll be in the Big Ten ACC Challenge against Notre Dame and Florida State. They'll play a couple games against Notre Dame and a couple games against Florida State. 3-2 heading in. Notre Dame 3-2, also kind of an underwhelming first weekend. What are some of the things you guys are looking forward to this weekend?
Again, just to see how Michigan bounces back after a disappointing first weekend is probably the biggest thing. How they roll out, what order we see the rotation come. Obviously, Blanco had her minor struggles over the last weekend, and we'll see how that plays in. Does she actually start the first game? Do we see Bobian start? Do we see Sarah Schaefer work her way into this rotation maybe after she threw a couple really nice innings at the end of the weekend last weekend? But this is a really big weekend to sort of pad that resume when we're staring down the barrel come end of April. I think Notre Dame, despite being 3-2, is going to be a team that picks up a lot of wins throughout the season. I think Florida State is going to be a really, really solid team that'll probably get a regional or a super. So this is a big resume padding weekend for U of M.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. It's a big weekend for all Michigan sports. A lot of big games this weekend. Basketball and hockey as well.
Who cares? Who cares about basketball?
I'm just telling you, this is a big weekend. Keep your eyes peeled for all Michigan sports. But this is certainly a big one, about as big as a non-conference sort of weekend can come. Just simply because, this is really, Florida State will probably be the other best team they play on their schedule. And when you look up and down, Baylor's pretty good. And Louisiana also in that California series. Texas is fine. But Florida State's a really good team.
I checked their flight schedule. They're clear. They're in the clear this time.
What is that supposed to mean?
It means they don't have a flight.
They won't back out of it.
It also means they're at home, so they can't fly away.
Yeah, so, this is another good measuring stick. I agree that 3-1 needs to be the benchmark. If
it's 4-0.
Yes, you always shoot for 4-0, but I will be very satisfied with 3-1. If they can split FSU and sweep Notre Dame, I think we can say all right.
And so I did the majority of the research on the opponents, and while I am the host, I do see fit to expand on this a bit, because that information is that I put on this Google Drive is not going anywhere else. So first of all, Notre Dame. Last year, Michigan split games against them. They were 34-23 overall. This year, they lost to Arizona State 9-1 in 6 innings. They lost to Fresno State. What I'm really most fascinated to see is they have a freshman, I think one of the only freshmen who's rated above Megan Bobian in the Flow softball rankings heading into this year, Alexis Holloway. She didn't shine like Bobian did in the first weekend, but I would love to see a matchup between those two. I'd also like to see Michigan contain Caitlin Brooks, because she batted in 5 runs in Michigan's loss to them last year, hit 2 home runs off Megan Betza. Not going to happen again this year, I guarantee. Betts is not going to give up 2 home runs to Notre Dame in one game. Florida State, they're really, really good. They lost a few seniors to the likes of graduation. Most notably, Jessica Burrows was their workhorse pitcher, had a 1.22 ERA. Couple of hitters who were hitting 300. They had a really solid and deep lineup last year. They hit 421 as a team in the opening weekend. Jessica Warren is the reigning ACC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, so she'll be someone to pitch around, hopefully, for the Wolverines. And Megan King is their ace, also on the USA Today Top 50 watch list heading into the season. But after her, they don't really have much in the way of arms, so if Michigan can get by Megan King, they can be able to beat Florida State, but that's a pretty tall task for an offense that has struggled in their opening weekend.
I think you're going to see Bobian go up against King and Holloway. I don't think it works out too many other ways. However, that kind of sorts itself, whether that's the first pair of games or the second pair of games or a combination. But I think you have to throw the 2 best arms against each other, or at least Michigan has to throw the best arm against the opponent's best arms to try and keep themselves in this one. Just with the offense being spotty at best so far in these big games. So, yeah, that's where I'm going to see this one shaping up, at least in the circle.
Well, you have to feel confident when you throw Bobian out against these teams, and that's sort of the big thing, is they can afford to play close games. They don't have to blow everybody out, you think, if you have Bobian out there. Again, small sample size, but just the way she performed really makes you think that you're going to be okay if you don't muster too much offense at times. But, yeah, I agree mostly with what JP said.
How do we feel, given what we saw against South Florida, about Blanco in the circle in those other 2 games? Because she'll be facing the same lineup Bobian does, and she gave Michigan a chance to win against South Florida, but
she's got to watch what she hangs out over the plate, especially when she takes a little mustard off there. That's when she got teed up. It's when obviously any pitcher will get teed up, kind of hanging their stuff right out there, some meatballs. But if she can avoid that, I mean, she tried to work the edges really hard last weekend, but the umpiring crews in pretty much every game that Michigan played in last weekend were really tight on the outside edges. So it was a tough order, and she kept having to go back inside a little bit more, and that was to her detriment. So we'll see what the weekend brings, but she was really painting the edge as well, just was a hair off, and I think that led her to giving up some of those tasty pitches.
Yeah, I mean, I small sample sizes and all, I still think there's a chance that she ends up as the best pitcher in this staff based on not seeing either pitcher throw a single pitch since the last spring.
Right, you just heard us talk about them, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's got a chance to be better than perhaps what she saw. She also needs to just clean up the command a little bit. It was shaky at times. It would come unscrewed for periods. Obviously, it'd be much better for the whole staff if she doesn't have to be the best pitcher on the team, but she just needs to be a dependable too.
Yep, it would be better for the team if the players played better.
She does have more of a tendency than I think most players on this team to get into her own head too much. I think just from watching her for a lot of years,
as much too,
and she has. Yeah, I think that's still something that's a work in progress, and we saw that again down in Tampa, where she would fall behind an account, go down, 2-1, 3-0 counts early, and then basically just kind of give like a pitch and throw it over.
Can you say that?
Oh yeah, you could cut that one out. Sorry, throw a little beep over me there.
I'll let you do the editing.
Yeah, I'll edit
a little. He said forget it. By the way.
Yeah. So,
but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I also think
it's what it is, though.
Yeah,
call it like it is.
I want to see more of Sarah Schaefer. I don't know if this is the series to get her in the mix, but when you look at a team like Florida, it really helps to have 3 arms, to have more options, to bring someone in to maybe close out a game, and if she can be solid, that would be a big boost to the staff, and it would change the outlook of how they can manage games. Again, I don't know if this is the weekend. Notre Dame is pretty solid. Maybe the next weekend in Texas against Wichita State. Not sure exactly when, but we didn't get to see her throw, but it was encouraging just looking at the box score.
For sure. And yeah, any coach would relish the opportunity to be able to mix and match. I know Notre Dame's head coach Deanna Gumpf did it last year against Michigan. Michigan saw 3 pitchers in both of their games against Notre Dame, and Tim Walton very eager to go to his bullpen. He has been throughout his career. So we've reached that point of the episode. It's prediction time. JP is predicting 4-0. We don't even need to hear him speak. Drain, I want to hear what you have to say.
4-0. On to Morris.
I'm inclined to think that if they go 2-2, it won't be getting swept by Florida State. I'm inclined to think that if they go 2-2, they're going to drop a game to Notre Dame. I think they can beat Florida State once. I don't know if they can beat them twice. They're going to beat Notre Dame once. So it's...
Sounds like 4-0.
Well, one thing I alluded to earlier in the episode is scheduling, creating easier or tougher matchups. And Florida State has 2 games against Minnesota in this Big Ten ACC Challenge.
They basically,
before they take on Michigan.
My request to the Wilson DeMarini folks got answered there by giving Florida State a tougher game before they play Michigan. So yeah, I think there's a chance there could be a kind of letdown game from Florida State. I don't know. It'll just... I'd probably go and say 2-2.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
2 plus 2?
4. and 0.
This is a tough one. And obviously watching Minnesota measure up against these teams will be interesting too, just in terms of gauging the competition, even though Michigan doesn't play them until potentially in the postseason.
Mm-hmm. So I think Kev wanted to see 3-1, but was unsure of it. JP is going 4-0. Do you have any...
I want to see 3-1 too.
Are you going to ask if I have justification for it?
Yes, I was going to ask you to substantiate your
I think my justification is that Michigan uses Beaubien to beat the two best arms on each team, or the best arm on each team, respectively. I think she takes down Holloway and King. And then I feel like Blanco does enough. And honestly, I think Sarah Schaefer might see some time this weekend. I don't know. She pitched pretty well in her first little bit there, and I think it's really a huge benefit if they can use this early season to get her into a comfortable position where she can work into a 3-person rotation. Especially because once you get to the Big Ten play, she should hopefully have a much easier time getting into the circle, getting acclimated. So, I don't know. I think Michigan uses that in the circle, and then I think the hot streak from Falk at the plate continues. I think Canfield continues to go on a tear.
I can't wait to get Lou Allen back in the lineup.
I was just about to mention that.
For those that were curious, it's not a long-term injury from what we've been told. We'll be back soon, hopefully.
Because I think she adds a big piece. When I was doing some research before the season, I wasn't able to go back in time and look back at past softball recruiting rankings because those are normally hidden behind a paywall, and I'm too cheap for that. But
we got it in the butt. We can afford $70 for Chili's. We can afford Flow softball.
Yeah,
come on.
JP can afford $70 for Chili's.
So I will say that when I was looking at the numbers, she was the number 8 recruit in the country. I don't know if she is the highest ranked hitter recruit since Sierra Romero. I believe she was number 3. I don't know if there was someone in between that time, but obviously Romero is a tough one to compare to, but she was able to be really good very quickly. I think there's a good chance, and we're seeing Beaubien be really good really quickly. Beaubien was number 6 overall. Allen is number 8 overall. There is a high chance that she could come in and just be just a slugger right away, and that totally jumpstarts things. So,
but I think this weekend again for 4-0, I think they have enough. I think Blanco's going to continue to hit the ball hard. I think this weekend she finds some of those gaps a little bit more than she did last.
Or last season when she was also scalding the ball and went the entire season hitting line drives into people's gloves.
Which has also been kind of the career story at the plate so far here for Subject, too. So would love to see both of them get some big knockers finally here. That'd be great.
All right, that's going to do it for our show today. Thanks to those of you who tuned in to our coverage down south in the Wilson D. Marini Classic.
Also, it was good to have some folks in the live chat, too.
Yeah.
It was fun to watch that.
Taksamikit.
That was something when I was in the studio for the OSU-Michigan game. There was tons of people in there. It's always just fun to watch and sort of interact. And I know Mo was in there. I know Kev was chatting with people. So always fun to hear from you guys. And
for the record, somebody put in there, we were calling fastballs a lot. I think some of that was our vantage point. We had a really hard time seeing rising, falling action from where we were.
Yeah.
So
a lot of those are curves, too.
Right, and curving. So we couldn't see really any kind of side-to-side, up and down movement really from where we were. So we do know what they look like when we can actually see them. It just wasn't a great vantage point.
Oh, I'd totally make them up like 60% of the time.
You got it down to a science last year. You were really good.
Yeah, I was very good at making it up as I went. I guess I should probably submit a prediction. 1-3. Don't trust the bets. That's going to do it for East of the Rockies Season 2, Episode 2. We will see you next week. Thank you.
You're listening to East of the Rockies, the Michigan Student Softball Podcast on WCBN Sports.
Well, Mr. Burns had done it. The power plant had won it, with Roger Clemens clucking all the while. Mike Scioscia's tragic illness made us smile, while Wade Boggs lay unconscious on the barroom tile. We're talking softball, from Maine to San Diego, talking softball. Mattingly and Canseco, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw, Steve Sachs and his running with the law. We're talking Homer, Ozzie and the Straw. We're talking soft.